everybody's coming in. You know what I'm gonna want in the chat?
Oh,
I don't even have to say it, do I? Let's just see who's there
it does
first.
not do that.
Linda O'Donnell, do you have that pre-written?
Yeah.
That's my question. Kindness is our thing. And we have the very kind Jessica Brody here. One of my favorites. Shane's going to do the official introduction once we give everybody a chance to get in. I feel like I've seen a lot of you today already with Lucy's hard work. She must be getting tired of being online. So Shane is going to run the meeting. He's going to introduce Jessica, and you guys are going to ask her really difficult questions about structure, and we're going to test her out. And before we get started, I want to just highlight that this is my copy of Save the Cat, and if you can see how much I've read it, reread it, super, super, super great book. Yes. And when I first met Jessica, I have to say I was a little bit starstruck. I met her through Grant Faulkner, who's the CEO of NaNoWriMo, and he introduced us. And when I first met her, I'm like, oh, I have your book. If you could sign it through here, that would be great. But it doesn't work that way. But I still have my book. And since then, I've gotten to know Jessica really well, and we've done a whole bunch of events together. And her teachings in Writing Mastery Academy so match up to what we're doing in the Fictionary software, and we really wanted to bring Jessica here to talk about what she knows about story structure and give you the opportunity to ask her questions directly, so you get not just our take but a different take that really brings it all together. So Shane, I'm going to let you go ahead and, now that I've blah blahed, introduce Jessica properly.
Awesome. Well, I know you're all really excited about this. I'm excited about this one too. So, by way of all things bio, Jessica Brody knew from a young age that she wanted to be a writer. She started publishing her own books when she was 7 years old, binding the pages together with cardboard, wallpaper samples, and electrical tape. That's awesome. After graduating from Smith College in 2001, where she double majored in economics and French and minored in Japanese, Jessica later went on to work for MGM Studios as a manager of acquisitions and business development. In May of 2005, Jessica quit her job to follow her dream of becoming a published author. And since then, Jessica has written and published over 20 novels for teens, tweens, and adults, including Amelia Gray is Almost Okay, The Chaos of Standing Still, The Geography of Lost Things, I Speak Boy, 52 Reasons to Hate My Father, A Week of Mondays, the Unremembered trilogy, which I read and is fantastic, and the System Divine trilogy, a sci-fi reimagining of Victor Hugo's Les Misérables, co-written with Joanne Rendell. She's also been hired by Disney Press to write several books based on popular Disney franchises such as The Descendants and Lego Disney Princess. Jessica is also the #1 best-selling author of plotting guides for novelists, including Save the Cat Writes a Novel and the hugely anticipated release of Save the Cat Writes a Young Adult Novel. She's also the founder of Writing Mastery Academy, as Christina mentioned, an innovative online learning platform designed to help writers break through challenges and achieve their writing goals. Jessica's books have been translated into over 20 languages, and several have been optioned for film and TV. She currently lives with her husband and 3 dogs near Portland, Oregon. And I just want to give a shout out for Save the Cat Writes a Young Adult Novel. So anyone who's entering their book into the YA category of the Fictionary Book of the Year award should go pre-order that right now. And I will put a link in the chat to that pre-order too. So welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much. That was like the long version of the bio that you somehow dug up from the internet. That was awesome. Thank you so much. I'm great. I'm glad to be here, although I don't know much about story structure, so I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be any help. Yeah, so thank you all for showing up today. I'm so excited to be part of this. As Christina said, we've been getting closer and closer as the years go by, and I'm honored to be welcomed into her community. I know she thinks very highly of all of you, and so I'm honored to be here today and answer your questions.
Okay, awesome. So does anyone have any questions that they want to kick off with? You can put your, oh, I see hands already. Kaylin, you've got your hand up, go.
Hey. First, Big fan. Absolutely love your writing mastery courses. I'm obsessed with your fast drafting and revision courses, and they've really changed my life, saved me lots of grief. My question is two-part. It's is Save the Cat Writes a Series still a possibility? And if in the meantime, or if not, would you be open to creating a video with Trello on how to outline and revise a series using your method that is just literally my bread and butter? My Trello app is always open on my phone, and I have a trip tonight, and I was just thinking, how great would it be if I knew how to use this Trello app the way Jessica does for a series?
Well, thank you, Caitlin, and for your wonderful, wonderful feedback on my courses. I'm so happy to hear that they're helping you. Okay, so Save the Cat Writes a Series is not a thing yet. However, I will say that because I get asked so much about writing a series, I put a whole huge chapter about it in the new book, which comes out in July. So Save the Cat Writes a Young Adult Novel has a dedicated chapter that breaks down a duology, a trilogy, a tetralogy, and further bigger series with series beat sheets from popular series. So I go deep dive into series. So hopefully that will kind of tide you over on the series front until I maybe one day get the nerve to write Save the Cat Writes a Series, although I feel like it would be like an 800-page book. So definitely check that chapter out in the new book when it comes out. And okay, so Trello, yeah, so funny you should bring up Trello because I'm actually revising a book right now myself, and I was like, I don't need Trello anymore. I'm going to do something new. I'm going to use Notion, and I'm going to do all this stuff in Notion, which I love Notion, and it's great for a lot of things. And I got like halfway through my revision, and I was like, this does not work. And I went back to Trello, and it was like this breath of fresh air. I was just like, ah, oh, Trello, yes. So I love your idea about doing a Trello video. Could you maybe like tell me a little bit more about what you would want to see in that video, and I will see about getting it on
so
my
like
list.
I think it's your revision course. At the end of most of the videos, you have like a 5-minute, this is how I would use Trello to get past this checkpoint.
Yes.
And so I was thinking maybe something similar where you would just, I know currently you have like one where you outline it and then you go through the revision process. So something, I guess, just how we could use Trello to outline a series. Like I know we have our to-do list, and then we have where we kind of separate it out into the different acts, and then, or rather, story level, scene level, page level. But really just kind of like, how would you do it for the entire series? Like your main arc, your sub arcs, just those things, just so I'm a list lover. I am so type A. I have an obsession with lists. Lists are all over my home everywhere. And so that's why I'm just like, I need to know how to use this. Like I've tried a couple different things, but I'm just like, I'm just going to ask Jessica one day. I'm just going to show up and be like, please, how do I use this for a series?
That's a great question. I've never used it for a series. So I would have to give that some more thought. So that's a really great idea. But I think you and I are like two birds and what do they say? Two birds of a feather, because I am like I'm list obsessed. And that's how I even found Trello.
I have to check them off. I have to.
There's a satisfaction in checking things off lists. But yeah, I will put that on my list and hopefully get to that soon. That's a really great idea. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.
Awesome. And Deborah, you have your hand up too. So you go next.
Okay, so my question is related to discussions in a number of different groups about the first 10 pages that agents want to see and the inciting incident. There seems to be some confusion whether the inciting incident needs to be in that first 10 pages. Some folks right now are saying, gee, I don't want to rewrite my whole book, and move chapters around so that those first 10 pages. And I was wondering how you would address that in your Save the Cat model.
Yeah, great question. And actually, I do get asked this a lot. So the inciting incident, which in Save the Cat we call the catalyst, it typically comes around the 10% mark in the Save the Cat structure. So if that's a 300-page novel, that's coming at page 30. And a lot of times agents will only read the first, 20, 30 pages. So depending on how long your novel is, they may not actually be reading the inciting incident. But there's a couple different ways that I will approach this answer. The first is that the inciting incident should not be the first exciting thing that happens in your book. If it is the first exciting thing, then you need to go back to your opening pages and make sure that there's intrigue in there, make sure that there's questions that the day is a super important day, that urgency for the story. Because I think what a lot of people misinterpret the opening pages as is like, oh, it's just a ho-hum sort of status quo, nothing really happens kind of pages. And that's sure to get an agent to fall asleep. So there's a difference between an inciting incident and compelling first pages. So that's sort of my first answer, is to make sure that those opening pages are grabbing the reader. And there's lots of different ways you can do that, by withholding information, by making sure that your hero has agency and is pursuing some type of important goal for themselves, and lots of other ways that you can do that. And so by the time you get to your inciting incident, the reader is already hooked. So that's the first kind of strategy that I will give you. The second strategy is that, yes, the inciting incident can absolutely come earlier. I have read novels where the catalyst or inciting incident happens on the very first page, and that's a great strategy for bringing readers into your story, is to start with literally a bang. And what you're going to do then is you're going to have the sort of responsibility now to make sure that your world and your character is set up in the aftermath of that. So if anyone's familiar with the Save the Cat structure, there's a beat called the setup, which usually comes before the inciting incident. And then there's a beat called the debate, which usually comes after the inciting incident, where the character, the hero, has time to debate or reflect on what just happened. So when you have a really early catalyst, like the first chapter, usually what happens is the setup and the debate get kind of combined together, where you're using the reaction to the catalyst to help set up your world, so that you can still, check all the boxes of an effective setup. And then also typically what happens when you have an early catalyst is you usually have a second catalyst, something that's going to bump the character into the second act, that's sort of a follow-up to the first catalyst. Again, this is a question I get asked a lot. And one of the things I did in my new book, Save the Cat Writes a Young Adult Novel, even though it's filled with young adult examples, I took all of the questions I get asked about the first book, like this one, like the series question, and I made sure to answer it in a dedicated chapter in this new book. So even if you're not writing a young adult novel, I think you'll find that this is like a next level book to the original book, if you want to kind of explore deeper. But those would be my 2 tips for you. Does that help?
Yeah, it does help. I'm actually fairly clear on it for myself, but I wanted to bring something to another group that's really struggling with it. And this has actually been really helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, great question, Deborah. So Yvonne, you're next. Go.
Thank you.
There you
Sorry.
go.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I am writing a memoir, and my inciting incident is that I read a newly discovered folder that was found during pandemic cleaning, and I find all the details that my adoptive parents hid. I knew I was adopted since like age 4, but I found out I was abandoned in a stairwell, lived in an orphanage 15 months. And my life is such that I was adopted by a severely mentally ill mother who hacked off my hair, and a father who threatened to cut off my fingers. So the inciting incident is finding that folder. I'm thinking the second catalyst is that when my father threatens to cut off my fingers. Is that a bit too dark for the first 25 pages? And also, what do you do when your life doesn't necessarily follow those beats exactly?
Yeah, this is a great question, and thank you for sharing that. I got chills. Literally, I got goosebumps all up my arms when you said that. Well, I'm very sorry that happened to you too, but it sounds like you're putting that into a story, and that's really powerful, and I applaud you for that. So to answer your first question, is it too dark? It really depends on the tone of your memoir. If you're going for a dark tone, then no, I would say no. Then you're really setting up the reader's expectations properly. If you're going for a lighter tone, then maybe, yeah, it is. So I don't necessarily think that, and I'm not the best judge of is something too dark or too not, because that's something I think only you can decide. And then in terms of your second question about what if your life doesn't fit the beats? So nobody's life fits the beats. And that is sort of the struggle of a memoirist, is that you are beholden to the truth, while us fiction writers, we can just lie our pants off, and nobody, everybody just expects that. So the benefit that fiction writers have is we can make stuff up to fit the story. What memoirists have to do is they have to be creative in how they tell the events of the story. So what I usually recommend memoirists do is kind of like what you sounds like you're already doing, which is pull out really key moments in your life. Put them on a board if you're a storyboarder type, you can use Trello, you can use Fictionary. There's lots of different storyboards you can use. You can do index cards, but just sort of take those really defining moments, which could be in story structure, your turning points, and lay them out. And then look at a structure method like the one that's found in Fictionary, or like the Save the Cat method, if you choose to use that, and try to see what beats fit those moments in your life. And then what you can do is you can kind of you can use those as tent poles to structure your story and create a foundation. And then you can creatively use flashbacks, flash forwards to fill in the space between those plot points, or those key moments. And I think this is what I'll find in memoirs that I read, particularly like the one that comes to mind is the book Wild, which just has a lot of flash forwards and flashbacks. But what she's done is and I don't have the structure in my head, but what she's done is she's nailed down these really key points in her life that serve to turn the plot. And when you look at if you're going to use the Save the Cat method, those plot points are the catalyst, the break into Act 2, which we call the break into 2, the midpoint, the all is lost, and the break into 3. Those are the turning points of the story. And I think they line up really well with actually the turning points that are in Fictionary. And I would use those to create that structure. And then I would fill in the rest in a way that kind of intrigues the reader by revealing what needs to be revealed in order to make those plot points really hit, if that makes sense.
It does. And then do you believe that a memoir has to have a theme? Mine is one of forgiveness. The last scene is I'm going to Hong Kong in a month, and I look at the island and I say, I don't know if I'll find you, Mom, but I hope to find me.
I love that. I mean, I think that's a beautiful theme, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, like jazz hands for that. Yeah, bravo.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And actually, the thing, just to say one more thing, the thing I love about that, what you just said, is that's what all stories are about. They're about someone who goes on a quest to find one thing and actually finds something else, which is the theme. They find the theme. So sounds like what you're kind of going for is like, I think that finding my mother is the key to all my problems, but actually it's finding myself. And that is really the heart of any well-told story, is someone who chases down something external and only to realize that the real power comes from inside.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Oh, that was a fantastic question, Yvonne, and thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, I got chills too. Alan, you're next if you want to go.
Hi, Jessica. I've used your software, which I have a hard time using, but I have adapted something in Word that I use, and I'd like to be able to show you it and get your impressions. It also seems like a good thing to show everybody else here, because the way I'm trying to do is tie it together so I can get the best use of Fictionary and Save the Cat. Would that be okay?
I will leave that up to the Fictionary people.
Okay, I'll let them answer.
Christina, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Ellen.
Okay. One moment.
You should see a green share button at the bottom of your screen. Do you see that?
Didn't it show?
No.
Oh, hold it. I see.
There it comes. There you go. Now it's up.
Okay. So what I do is I place different headings in. So if I do a search, for example, and I'd search for that carrot, that's part of an outline, and it brings up each of the main points of what you have in there. And they sort of tie together, all right? I also, when I'm going through this stuff, will switch over to outline view. And if I wanted to do that, I could just show level 2 or level 1 and take a quick look at what things are happening. And I try to integrate this. And if you want to, you can expand it a little bit. How do I do that? Well, these things do quick, but right now I'm not. So I'm not going to take a lot of time on that. But they expand out so that you can see little things of what's written and what's not written. So that's what I'm trying to basically do. And what I'm trying to do is take this skeleton blurb that we have here, and then I take these. Now, if I move a scene, let's say let's create a new, let's say I create a new scene. And this is done with word, what do you call it? Word styles. And you can see what I'm doing here is I'm throwing in your character stuff for the character mapping, so I can map it to both things. So look at what happens here. I hit a Control A, and then I update the fields, and this renumbers, which allows me to move the scenes around like this.
So, Alan, do you have a specific question to Jessica on this?
Yes. So what I'm asking is, from your point of view, does this seem like a good way to use the Save the Cat structure that's there, or do you think there's a better way to do it through Word and integrate it with Fictionary?
Well, I'll let the Fictionary people talk about Fictionary because I'm not a pro at it, but I think what you've done is really clever. I love that you're using headings and the table of contents. I love that you're able to drag and drop, something you can't do on a Mac, but you can do on a PC. And I think this is great. And really, it's whatever works for you. You know, some people love to use Scrivener. Some people love to use Word. I'm a Word user myself. Some people love Trello. So if you found that this works really well for you and speaks to your process, then I say keep going with it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. So does anyone have any other questions? Don't be shy. Kaylin, another question, go.
Figured I'd go for it. I I love your balance check that you do for your scenes. And I know it's kind of it's like a really in-depth process to just kind of figure out how much action, exposition, and descriptions in every single scene. And I'm curious, do you still do that for every scene when you're going through your editing?
Great question. So for those of you who aren't familiar, in my revision course, what Kaylin's referring to is I have a little exercise that I suggest to people when they're working on scene level revision, so working scene by scene. And that is to create a balance check. And it's essentially what you do is you take a scene, you highlight all of the description in one color, you highlight all the action in another color, all of the reflection in a different color, and so on. And then you can really see where your scene is off balance. So like if you just have a chunk of reflection in a row and no action, then your scene's going to slow there. So it's a great way to kind of self-check yourself. So I will admit that I don't physically do the color things, but that's only because I can see it in my head without it. Like, I've been doing this for so long. I've been revising my own work for so long. I just get like a feel for it, and I can actually just see it on the page in the amount of white space is missing. I know that I've just dumped a whole bunch of reflection in there and it needs to be broken up. So I think I just do it intuitively, but it's a great exercise for when you're first starting out with your revision process to like help you see it. Because one of my editors, the way I even came up with it is one of my editors went scene by scene through my novel, and she just started marking up. She's like, so much reflection, break it up, so much reflection. And I didn't even realize I was doing that. And once I worked on breaking it up, the scene just came alive, each scene. And it was a lot of work to do that. But then the book was just so much better at the end. So I feel like it's worth the effort. And I'm glad that you find it. I find it useful.
Oh, I love it. I do. Definitely a lot of work, but worth the effort, hands down. Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for taking that effort, because I think something Christina and I have talked about in the past is that, revision is hard work and it takes a lot of effort, but it is really, revising is what makes you a proper official novelist. Writing a first draft, it's not easy, but that's literally just the first step. And the revision is the hard work that puts you to the test and forces you to look at your story and make it the best it can be. And so every time someone like you, Kaylin, who takes that effort, who takes the time to make that effort, and just like applause, because it is not easy. And most people just give up, or they just go, oh, it's good enough. But like when we take that extra time to go, I'm going to make it better, I can make this better. I just think it makes a huge difference. So thank you to you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, fantastic question. Sarah, you had your hand up next. So if you want to ask your question.
Yes, as I was revising this morning, I discovered that my story goal changed completely after the inciting incident. Should that happen or not?
Absolutely, that happens all the time.
Okay.
And what I say is, catalysts and inciting incidents are designed, they should break the status quo. They should crash land into your hero's life. And so naturally, goals will probably change as a result, because if you're going to break the status quo with enough force, as a catalyst should do, there's going to be it's just naturally going to have an effect on your goals. Now, that doesn't mean you have to change your goal after the catalyst. I've read plenty of novels where the goal stays the same, but sometimes just the hero's way of approaching it might change because of the catalyst. But if the catalyst doesn't change enough things in the story, doesn't change the momentum or the direction, then your catalyst might not be big enough. So I think that you're on the right track with that.
Okay, thank you. I have one other question. I have about 4 scenes in the middle that are from the love interests. The woman is my POV. I have 4 scenes in the middle that are from the love interest's point of view that tell his backstory. Now, I have it broken up with a lot of action and conversation and stuff like that, but is that legitimate, having it from his point of view in the middle of her story? Partly I have it there because she needs to know this in order to understand him and finally allow herself to love him.
Great question. Okay, so every time people ask me these kinds of questions, I get like a little bit nervous, because if I tell you, no, you can't do that, then 9 times out of 10, next month, a book will come out that does that. And it's like a phenomenal bestseller. And everyone's like, well, what about that book? So I say there's no rules. That's the first thing I say is you tell the best story you can tell. And every time you do something creative, someone's going to hate you for it and someone's going to applaud you for it. And that's just the way it goes. So I say, great. If you are worried about it and you want to think of other ways to get that information in, I guess the only thing that came up when you were speaking is you said that the main character needed to know this information. But what you described is a point of view from the other character, which to me says that the main character doesn't know about it. Only the reader knows about it.
Okay,
So,
I think I missed there. Yeah.
Is that correct? What I just said, or am I misunderstanding?
The main character doesn't know it until he tells her what it is.
Okay. So then my follow-up question to that would be, is there any benefit in having the reader know this information before the main character? And if there is, then great. I feel like you have good reason to keep those POVs in. If you, on the other hand, think that it might be more compelling for the reader to know the information at the same time as the main character, then perhaps those extra POVs aren't useful. But that's only something you can decide.
Okay, thank you.
That's
welcome.
Helpful. You're welcome.
Yeah, great questions again. Hope, you have your hand up. So Hope, go.
Hi, I use a highlighting method. I love it because I do it to break down, deconstruct ebooks, right? To see how other authors structure their books. I know it's painstaking, but it helps a lot.
It's amazing. I'm so glad you do that.
So Kaylin had mentioned about your balance check. Is it a course, or do you have video on it? Is it part of your academy, or
Yeah, it's in my revision course, which is part of the Writing Mastery Academy. And I think the link got put in somewhere, but it's writingmastery.com. And there's I don't know if you guys put the coupon in, but for for Fictionary members, there's a discount. But basically my Writing Mastery Academy, for those of you who don't know, is an all-inclusive membership site where you get access to all my writing courses, plus courses that I've developed with other instructors. So I think we have 11 courses now, and the complete novel revision course is one of those courses. And that is an exercise that's included within that course. First of all, I just want to say, applauds to you. I can just tell from these questions that this community is amazing, super serious writers. You're all doing the work, and I just love it. So kudos to all of you. The fact that you take the time to break down books is so important. People ask me all the time, how do you know all this stuff about structure? Because I break down other books. There's no secret. I just read a lot and I analyze them to death. So I think it's such a great learning tool, as you have described. But that is absolutely something you can do with other stories, is to, the thing about the color coding, which is really helpful for me, is if you're doing it with your own work or you're doing it with someone else's work, is you can visually see the way a scene is constructed. You can visually see how action interweaves with dialogue, interweaves with reflection, interweaves with exposition. And it's just so enlightening to go, oh, that's how you do it. That's how you break up a giant chunk of reflection and weave it around action. It's just very enlightening. So I think continue to do what you're doing, and I applaud you for it.
Awesome. Great question again, Hope. And Amy had a question in the chat. Is there something you wish that story editors, line editors, and or developmental editors would know about novels that follow the Save the Cat writes a novel structure, or something you feel editors haven't picked up on or have not understood and you've had to push back on in your own work?
Oh, that's a great question. She's got to throw some shade at the editors. I mean, I've had just such a positive experience with my editors in the past. I can't think of anything where the editor said something and I went, no, I'm the structure master here. Like, I'm going to tell you how it's done. I feel like editors read so much, and like the last question, they analyze things really well. And so the editors I've worked with specifically have a really keen eye. I think anytime I've disagreed with my editor, it's more about personal taste than it is about structure. But I am trying to think of certain, sometimes and I don't think this is like a specific editor or like a specific editor flaw or anything like that. But what's always important to note is that you know your story better than anyone will ever know your story. Apart from maybe a few like really rabid fans, but you know the story so well. And so don't be afraid to stand up for what you think is right for your story. So there's been times like where my editor will say, can we cut this line? And I will say, well, actually, no, because that sets up a line 300 pages later. And she'll go, oh, you're right. Okay, I didn't make that connection. And of course you didn't make that connection. You didn't slave over this book for, 20 hours a day, whatever. So that's important to note. Editors aren't always right. But then on the other side of the coin, always take an editor's feedback with heart, always listen to what they're trying to say. And same goes with beta readers. Sometimes we throw the baby out with the bathwater when we get edits we don't like. Sometimes we'll get a suggestion from someone and it'll immediately rub us the wrong way and we'll go, no, and we'll resist it. And the problem with that is that we are ignoring what's behind the suggestion. So perhaps a beta reader or an editor might say something like, I would really like it if this character, were really good at sports or something. I don't know. And you're like, no, that's not them. I don't like them. But really I don't like that at all. But really what they're saying is, I want this character to have more interests. And that's the real note there. So make sure that when you are listening to edits, when you feel that resistance come on, when you feel that urge to push an edit away, dissect it, look at it, and try to figure out what is it actually saying, and is that something that might need to be worked on. So there's two sides to working with editors, and I think there's a very fine balance between holding on to what you know is right for your story, but also keeping an open mind to what they have to say.
Hey, that's great. And we have time for about one more question. So if anyone's got another question, hands up in the chat.
I just want to say for the coupon code to Writing Mastery Academy, I've just put the link up there again. It takes you to our website, and from our website, it takes you to a Fictionary specific website, and you get the discount that way. It's just a little bit different from how we normally do it. So I think that's why there's confusion, but the link is there now, so you can go straight there.
Okay, while we wait for the last question to pop up, I'm just going to share a special announcement that I have. Let me move this around here. So, as I mentioned before, Save the Cat Writes a young adult novel comes out July 25th. Very excited about it. Even if you're not writing young adult, I think what you'll find in this book, although it is filled with young adult examples, is that it really dives deeper into structure than the original book. It's got a lot of extra content that answers a lot of questions that I get from the first book. So I've put an entire chapter in there about customizing your beat sheet, all of these extra things like what happens when your catalyst comes on the first page, what happens when you're writing an antagonist story, where do flashbacks go, where do prologues go in the structure method, all of those kinds of questions that I get asked a lot, I've put into a dedicated chapter. I also have a brand new chapter on series by popular demand. If you pre-order the book, I'm offering a free companion ebook that has 100 pages of extra content. And that comes with 5 bonus beat sheets. So beat sheets are breakdowns of full novels, full novel breakdowns using the Save the Cat method to show you where the beats fall in popular stories. So the 5 bonus beat sheets included in this companion ebook for pre-ordering is The Sun is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. This is a great example of dual POV. So it's a romance told from both sides of the equation. So you get 2 beat sheets in one there. Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds, which is an award-winning novel in verse. So this was really fun for me to explore, what does a beat sheet look like in a book that's told in poems, in verse? And I had a great time with that one. This beat sheet was unique in that it is missing one very crucial beat, and I won't tell you what it is because you can read the beat sheet and find out. Red Queen is a fantasy novel that I broke down, that I had a great time kind of exploring where the world building happens and all of that. We Were Liars is a psychological drama thriller by E. Lockhart that I broke down. And The Inheritance Games is a mystery novel that I included as well. So you can get all 5 of those beat sheets if you pre-order. The link is jessicabrody.com/pre-order. So you go there, upload your proof of purchase, and you will get the companion ebook when the book releases. On top of that, we have an indie bookseller bonus. So if you order from a US independent bookstore, we're trying to support the indies, you'll also get a free ticket to my upcoming live plot along workshop. So I've never done this before. This is a one-time event that I've been wanting to try for a long time. It's basically a 2-hour interactive workshop where I will be plotting a brand new YA novel from scratch using my book. So you'll get to see how I walk through the entire process, and you'll be able to collaborate with me on the process by voting on ideas and plot details. So I've been wanting to do this kind of thing for a long time, so I'm doing it here, and you'll get a free ticket when you pre-order from an indie bookstore, and of course you can plot along with me. So that workshop's going to happen on August 12th, and you'll also get access to a recording if you can't make it live or you want to rewatch. So all of that information is at jessicabrody.com/pre-order. Even though you have to order from a US indie bookstore, I did include links to certain US indie bookstores that do offer international shipping. So this is all open to anyone, anywhere in the world. So I hope you'll take advantage of it.
Yay, thank you, Jessica. So we have a couple of minutes left, and I'm gonna be pull rank and ask the last question because it's totally related to YA. We have the Fictionary Book of the Year award coming up again this year, and we have middle grade YA category in one category, and we have adult. And last year we got lots of questions on where's the difference. Like, when does a YA novel become an adult novel, and where should I submit? Should I submit YA or adult? So I would love your opinion on that. So that's the final question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for tying it into the whole YA launch here. So technically young adult, and what's really fun about young adult is that it's not a genre. It's an age categorization, and it's a categorization based on intended reader. So who is your book intended for? Is it intended for a 14-year-old reader? Then it's a young adult. Is it intended for a 10-year-old reader? Then it's a middle grade. Is it intended for a 22-year-old reader? Then it's an adult. So the age category of YA is typically the intended reader is 12 to 18. Now, there's always borderline ones that happen on the fringe there, but that is kind of the general consensus in the industry. Now, that doesn't mean that your character has to be in that range, although typically they are. So typically teens want to read about teenagers doing teenager things like them. So your characters are probably going to be teenagers as well. And then it gets a little bit blurry when you get into middle grade because kids like to read up. But so there's the kind of caveats or the exceptions to the rule are there are some novels where the main character is like 12, but it is firmly a young adult novel. There's a few of those that I break down in Save the Cat Writes a Young Adult Novel. Prominent examples are The Giver by Lois Lowry, which is the character is 12, but it is firmly in the young adult camp. The publisher has put it in the young adult category. It is on young adult shelves in the bookstore. It is intended for teen readers because it's a little bit more mature in content. The Book Thief is another example of a 12-year-old character, but it's intended for older readers. So really the question to ask yourself is, who am I writing this for? Am I writing this for for teenagers having teenage experiences? Then it's young adult. I am not the industry gatekeeper. I can't tell you what you can and can't do with YA, although there are agents and editors out there who will just right in your face say, do not put a 22-year-old character in a teen book. Just don't do it. They'll say that. I'm not going to say that because I'm not a gatekeeper, but that's sometimes something that will come up a lot is someone will go, well, I want to write a YA book, but I want the character to be 22. Typically, that doesn't happen. If you're self-publishing, you can probably do whatever you want because there's less gatekeepers that way. If you're traditionally publishing, chances are you're going to get some pushback if you try to kind of take your character out of the range of your reader zone. Does that make sense?
Certainly does, and that's a really important point because one of the prizes of Book of the Year award is a read through from a writer's house literary agency in New York, and
Cool.
so they are clearly gatekeepers, right?
That's a big one. They're like the pie in the sky kind of agency.
They are like they're it, right? So we've just
Yeah.
had our first 3 books from this year have gone off. Two in the YA category and 1 in the adult category have been submitted into Writer's House. So we're just waiting back now on those. But you know, we were thrilled to get them last year, and we're thrilled to get them again this year to actually read Fictionary edited books. And you know, it's quite flattering because they have some really great success stories of people who've edited in Fictionary, and then they've gone on and gotten them really great publishing deals. So we're doing it again next year. And they suggested the 2 categories, and they actually suggested we submit 1 category that's middle grade YA and 1 category that's adult. And they chose their agents based on that. So 1 in each category, basically. So you know, we chose our categories because that's really what they wanted to read. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
And that makes sense because agents who represent YA typically also represent middle grade and vice versa. But agents who represent adult don't always represent kids' books. And then in the traditional publishing world, YA and middle grade, which I write both of those, they are almost always under the same publishing umbrella. So Simon & Schuster Books for Young Readers is one of my publishers, and they do children's books, they do YA, they do middle grade. So YA is typically under the kind of kids publishing umbrella, and that's why you'll find that those YA and middle grade are lumped together a lot.
Nice.
And that's also important to note is that when you're writing YA, you are still writing for, quote, kids. These are still minors. They're still under, you know, their parents' authority. They're still figuring things out. So always keep that in mind too, that you are writing for impressionable young readers. That doesn't mean that you can't go dark, and that doesn't mean that you can't explore really sensitive, complex topics, because teens love that. But always keep that in mind that they are still technically kids' books.
Kids, yeah. All right, terrific. Well, thank you, Jessica. I'm super thrilled. That was really wonderful. Thanks to everyone for asking such great questions. As usual, we love that in this community. And Jessica, I wish you very best with your new upcoming book. Super looking forward to reading it when it lands in my doorstep on July 25th. You'll be here. Yay.
Thank you all. And thank you for your wonderful questions. Yeah, as I said, I can tell this is a serious writer community, not like serious, like you can't take a joke, but like serious getting to the work. And I love it. It's really refreshing to meet such avid writers. I love it. So congrats to all of you and good luck with all your projects.
Okay, thanks everybody. We'll see you at the next event.